The long-awaited Mechazilla is now in the process of becoming a reality. Tech giants and enthusiasts around the globe are curious to find out how effective this will be and why SpaceX's CEO Elon Musk so fondly talks about it. The whole concept of the Mechazilla is simply phenomenal, and this video covers all of its information, so watch to the end to find out all about the SpaceX Mechazilla. Elon Musk, CEO of SpaceX, explained how the new Mechazilla orbital grasping arm would aid the Starship rocket earlier this month. The objective is to intercept the spacecraft and its super heavy rocket to make their way back to Earth. The method may improve the drone ships presently employed to return Falcon 9 rockets to Earth following flights. This may enable the company to meet its most ambitious goals, such as launching the same Starship 3 times each day. As a result, it has a possibility of accomplishing its objective of establishing a metropolis on Mars by 2050. This would eliminate the requirement for future super heavy rockets and perhaps future Starships returning to Earth to attach landing legs. Groundworkers at SpaceX's South Texas launch facility in Boca Chica recently completed stacking the tower's 9 pieces of bolted steel, standing at approximately 440 feet tall. With these steps completed, the teams can start equipping the building with massive actuator arms, fuel lines, hydraulic systems, and other components that would transform it into Mechazilla. Work on all 3 of the components that SpaceX CEO Elon Musk has dubbed Mechazilla has been visible since the final week of June. This was most likely a reference to the Godzilla movie franchise's character, Mechagodzilla, a robotic version of Godzilla who battles the original in the 1974 film Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. Since Musk unveiled it, people in the space community have guessed what this new tower would look like. SpaceX's first custom-built launch tower serves as a backbone or anchor point for many mechanical arms to service and perhaps catch Starships and super heavy rockets, with a tiny arm of welders painstakingly assembling hundreds of pieces of heavy-duty steel tubing into house-sized frameworks. Almost 2 months later, SpaceX has erected the first of those 3 arms outside of the Starship skyscraper-sized launch tower. The independent structure, known as the tower's Quick Disconnect or QD swing arm, is allegedly intended to perform various functions. The first unofficial term indicates that the QD arm would contain a quick disconnect umbilical connection connected to the base of Starships that would provide fuel, oxidizer, and other consumables and connect them to ground power and networking. It seems SpaceX intended to power Starship upper stages with the super heavy rockets linked to umbilical panels on a table-like launch platform next to the tower for a long time now. However, after construction on Starship S-20, the first possibly space-capable prototype started. It was apparent that SpaceX had skipped the umbilical plate usually placed at the base of Starship skirts to move the connection to the ship's lower back. Musk subsequently confirmed this in interviews and tweets, adding that long-standing plans to dock Starships aft to aft for in-space refueling were also on the chopping block. The launch pad seems more difficult and complex than Starship's Super Heavy. SpaceX CEO has also said he desires to offload as many systems as possible onto the launch pad, seemingly regardless of the complexity of the alternative. Enter Mechazilla, a building-sized robot known colloquially as Mechazilla. However, SpaceX appears to have foregone installing a basic crane on top of its Starship tower. Musk himself has developed an almost infamous aversion to including something as seemingly simple as landing legs on super heavy boosters, and eventually perhaps even some Starship variants. Rather than adding bare legs to super heavy prototypes, Musk seems to have pushed SpaceX to convert Starship's launch tower into a weak, complicated, and fragile rocket recovery system. Musk claims that in addition to the relatively bare QD arms, SpaceX would install a pair of enormous house-sized steel arms placed on a kind of external elevator. Those arms are said to be capable of activating and moving up and down the tower with the speed, accuracy, and dependability required to grab super heavy boosters and, ultimately, Starships in mid-air. The crew charged with developing and constructing those rocket-catching arms dubbed them chopsticks, a reference to the sort of subtle actuation required to retrieve the world's biggest rocket boosters and upper stages without missing or damaging them. SpaceX wants to introduce a few more points of failure into the equation, despite having just recently mastered propulsive vertical landing with Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy rockets. But with the Mechazilla, SpaceX is thinking larger. Musk said in December 2020 that the company intended to utilize the launch tower's arms to capture the super heavy rocket when it returned to Earth. Some Musk supporters have even produced animations of their ideas on how it could work. The most recent comes from X, who utilized the finished tower as the starting point for his newest animation. The first to respond was a 3D designer YouTuber user Mini3D, who produced energy based on Musk's description the very following day. The Mechazilla 1-hour turnaround animation depicted a functioning tower capturing and transporting a super heavy rocket that has just returned to a launch pad after delivering a Starship to orbit. The actuator arms then swivel and snag another Starship, stacking it on top of the Super Heavy. Booster and components will move more quickly. Musk is now guaranteeing a turnaround time of less than an hour. It is verified that future Starships will be retrievable using this same device and others similar to it. This second possibility is more probable if and when Starships start carrying passengers on point-to-point flights between large cities, a service Musk has promised would be accessible once the Starship is approved for commercial aviation. While being interviewed, Musk was asked if such a facility could be built on Mars, and if the super heavy rockets might be manufactured there for journeys to the outer solar system. On both counts, yes. That would be a fantastic result for civilization, Musk said. X has released many more animations depicting what a Mechazilla retrieval might look like. Regardless, SpaceX's enormous chopstick arms were going to be needed to rapidly spin around rockets and Starships. Since the last week of June, welders have been working on the heavy-duty steel tubing assembled into structures as big as houses. These projects include Mechazilla, as Musk called it, a triad of arms that are individually able to move like a person. 1 month after stacking Starship's South Texas launch tower to its maximum height, SpaceX has placed the first arm on what amounts to Mechazilla's backbone. Almost 2 months later, SpaceX has erected the first of those 3 arms outside of Starship's skyscraper-sized launch tower. To SpaceX and Musk's credit, whether the company's second attempt at catching rockets goes as well as the first, to quickly change out and recycle rockets and Starships, some kind of variation of the large chopstick arms that SpaceX is developing was probably needed. SpaceX hopes to place Starships on Super Heavy and Super Heavy on the launch mount even in the strong winds almost usually present on the South Texas Gulf Coast by substituting a tower crane with gigantic arms. Suppose SpaceX can consistently capture rockets with those arms.